Hey, it's Dave. Welcome to Classic Basslines. In this video, I'm taking a look at the bassline on Freddie's Dead from Mayfield. I'll talk a little bit about what I love about this bassline, and later in the video, I'll play a slowed down version of it for you, and I'll give you some playing tips. I have a link for the bass tab for this in the description below. So, Freddie's Dead. It's off Mayfield's soundtrack to the movie Superfly. This was released in 1972, and the bassist on this is Mayfield's longtime bassist, Joseph "Lucky" Scott. If you don't know him by name, you definitely know some of his bass lines from the cuts on this album. I highly recommend checking out this whole record. It's amazing. Also, I really recommend checking out Curtis Live from 1971. It's a very up-close and personal look at Joseph Scott's playing, but also his tone, which is just huge and fat and gritty and percussive. It's really special. I already made a video for one of the tracks off that record, and you can find the link for that down in the description. He's definitely a guy that's going to be featured a lot on this channel. So the bass line on Freddie's Dead follows a similar pattern to a lot of Curtis Mayfield tunes, which has a funky, repetitive bass line in the A sections, and then a little more flowing or usually improvised bass line in the B section. Let's take a look at each part. The A section on this tune is one of those groovy bass lines that's just built around the minor pentatonic scale, in this case C-sharp minor pentatonic. I'm always curious about what it is that makes a bass line like this great, because it's a seemingly very fine line between a classic bass line and a very trite and forgettable bass line. I think it typically comes down to just like the pocket, the time feel, the tone, the production, those kinds of things, which of course Joseph Scott has completely dialed in here. But this bass line also has some interesting note choices. I think of this chord as a C-sharp minor 7 chord, but in the bass line, C-sharp only really ever gets played as kind of like a passing note. The strongest notes in this bass line are the B natural, which is the minor 7th, which he plays on the downbeat instead of a C-sharp. And the other really strong note in this bass line is the E natural, which is the minor 3rd. And he accents that in two ways. It's kind of where the bass line sort of lives, and it's also where the bass line resolves. He goes down there. It's possible that this should maybe be thought of as like an E6 chord instead of a C-sharp minor 7, which are just the same notes but kind of in different order. I don't really know for sure, but I think the ambiguity is kind of the idea here. So that's the verse. Now look at the B section. Like I said before, Curtis Mayfield tunes tend to open up on the B section and get a little bit more improvised, more flowing kind of sound, and that definitely happens here. Here, Joseph Scott is showing the pervasive influence of James Jamerson in soul bass playing. The B sections are just over an F minor 7, and it's just sort of walking up the scale, between these octaves, which is very Jamerson-like. This really reminds me of the B section to What's Going On. Of course, Joseph Scott does his own thing with it. For one, this is not actually improvised. It's a 4-bar long line, but every time he plays the bridge, he actually plays the same thing. So he's sort of written a bass line that is in the style of like an improvised Jamerson bass line. The other thing he does that's really a little bit different is he makes a really strong statement with this 9 in the second bar. It's just a little more melodic than Jamerson would typically go for. He likes those strong roots on the downbeat. Now the last part of this line I want to talk about, the bass solo. This is a bass solo played by a man with the courage of his convictions. It's just the bass line, but all by itself. He juices it just a little bit by putting that triplet lick in, which just adds a little zest. I just love it. Take a look at the swag on the man himself when he plays this bass solo. Oh yeah, that's how you play a bass solo. The triplet figure is also really cool to me because it really sounds like it's coming out of jazz upright bass playing. This is the kind of thing, this triplet rake, that guys like Ray Brown, Ron Carter put all throughout their playing. But you don't really hear electric players doing it, especially in a non-jazz context. Joseph Scott uses this a lot. On that Curtis Live record, these rakes are all over the place, and it's really cool. I just don't hear many electric bass players doing anything like that. Okay, so now I'll play a slowed down version of the line for you, and afterwards I'll just give you a few tips. As always, note length is of paramount importance. Don't let this get soggy. On the verse, you want crisp, round, full, but short notes with a little bit of space in between them. The second part of the verse is a little more legato. And just pay special care for that E. I personally tend to always want to hit that too hard. I just have to remind myself. Just back off. It's E. It's already a big note. Just, don't spank it too hard. I'm just looking for it full and long, but not really accented. On the B section, the notes do lengthen a little bit, and the line is a little more legato, so just keep that smooth and flowing. Be sure to slide into that G sharp, the 9. Every time he hits the 9 on this song, he slides. It's really a kind of thematic thing, so don't miss that. Now for the solo, the rake is a little bit tricky. When I learned how to play these on the upright bass, it's kind of something that I never even thought about or practiced. It's like almost like how an infant learns to talk. You just hear it so much and you just go to make that sound and it comes out. So I do have kind of a hard time teaching this. I apologize. I tried to break it down on this. What I think the best way to do it is hit that C sharp and then lift up with your finger so you get a dead string here. After you hit that dead string, you want to rake with that same finger down to the G sharp and then the F sharp and the E. So a little bit like and really, put some oomph behind it because as you can see by the man, that's your big moment. So that's Freddie's Dead. I hope you enjoyed this and we'll see you next week. Thank you.